First contact and cultural exchange. The sleek, silver spacecraft pierced Earth's atmosphere, its arrival heralded by a chorus of urgent alerts from every space agency on the planet. As it descended towards the United Nations headquarters in New York, the world held its collective breath. This was the moment humanity had both dreamed of and feared for centuries. First contact with an extraterrestrial civilization. Dr. Samantha Chen, the newly appointed head of Earth's Extraterrestrial Relations Committee, stood on the landing pad, her heart racing. Beside her, military personnel and fellow scientists shifted nervously, their eyes fixed on the approaching vessel. As the craft touched down with barely a whisper, Samantha straightened her jacket and took a deep breath. This was it. A sleek door materialized in the ship's smooth hull, and from it emerged three figures that defied easy description. They were tall, easily 7 feet in height, with iridescent skin that seemed to shimmer with every movement. Their bodies were lithe and graceful, with 4 arms that moved with hypnotic fluidity. Large, almond-shaped eyes dominated their faces, glowing with an inner light that spoke of deep intelligence and curiosity. Samantha stepped forward, her voice steady despite her nerves. On behalf of humanity, welcome to Earth. I am Dr. Samantha Chen, and we are honored by your presence. The central figure inclined its head in a gesture that seemed universal. When it spoke, the words came not from its mouth, but seemed to form directly in Samantha's mind. Greetings, people of Earth. We are the Zinthar, and we come in peace and friendship. We have long observed your world, and believe the time has come for our civilizations to meet. Over the next few weeks, the world was in a frenzy. News outlets ran nonstop coverage of the alien visitors, and social media exploded with theories, memes, and heated debates. But as the initial shock wore off, a more structured form of cultural exchange began to take shape. The Zinthar, it turned out, were part of a vast galactic community, and they had come to invite Earth to join. But before that could happen, there needed to be a period of acclimatization and mutual understanding. And so, the Galactic Cultural Exchange Program was born. 1 month after first contact, Samantha found herself aboard a Zinthar ship, along with a carefully selected group of human representatives. They were bound for Xylox, a neutral planet that served as a hub for interspecies diplomacy and cultural exchange. As they approached the planet, Samantha gasped at the sight. Xylox was a swirling marble of blues, greens, and purples, orbited by gleaming space stations that looked like delicate jewelry. The ship docked at one of these stations, and as the humans disembarked, they were greeted by a dizzying array of alien species. Caxlor, their Zinthar guide, gestured with 2 of his 4 arms. Welcome to the Galactic Conclave. Here, species from across the known universe come to learn from one another, to trade knowledge and culture. And now, humanity joins our ranks. The next few days were a blur of introductions, lectures, and demonstrations. Humans shared their art, music, and science, while alien species showcased technologies and concepts that seemed like magic. But it was on the 4th day that something truly remarkable happened. Samantha and a few others were observing a demonstration of what could only be described as alien martial arts. 2 beings that looked like sentient crystals were engaged in a mesmerizing display of combat. Their movements were fluid yet precise, and the air around them seemed to ripple with energy. This is crystal kinetics, Caxlor explained, a martial art developed by the Luminarians. It harnesses the fundamental energies of the universe to enhance one's physical and mental capabilities. As the demonstration concluded, one of the human representatives, a former MMA fighter named Jake Rodriguez, stepped forward. That was incredible, he said, his eyes wide with excitement. Is it possible for humans to learn this? The crystal beings turned to each other, their facets glinting in silent communication. After a moment, one of them spoke, its voice a melodious chime. It is not forbidden, but it has never been attempted by a species as young as yours. The risks could be significant. Jake's eyes gleamed with determination. Unwilling to take that risk, If humans are going to be part of this galactic community, we need to understand and adapt to new ways of thinking, of moving, of fighting. Please, give me a chance. Samantha started to interject, concerned about the potential diplomatic ramifications, but Caxilor placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. Perhaps, the Zinthar said, this is exactly the kind of exchange we should be encouraging. After all, true understanding comes not just from observation, but from participation. And so, with some trepidation, the Luminarians agreed to take on Jake as a student. What none of them realized at that moment was that this decision would set in motion a chain of events that would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. Over the next few weeks, Jake threw himself into his training with a fervor that surprised even the Luminarians. While other humans continued their cultural exchanges, Jake spent hours each day in grueling physical and mental exercises. He learned to perceive the energy fields that permeated the universe, to channel them through his body, to bend and shape them with his will. At first, progress was slow and painful. Jake would often return to the human quarters exhausted, his body covered in bruises, his mind reeling from the strain of perceiving realities he had never known existed. But he persevered, driven by a mix of curiosity, ambition, and a deep-seated desire to prove that humanity could stand shoulder to shoulder with the oldest and most advanced civilizations in the galaxy. As Jake's training progressed, word began to spread through the galactic conclave. Other species watched with a mix of curiosity and concern as this human, a member of a species that had only just achieved interstellar travel, began to grasp concepts that had taken other races centuries to master. Samantha, for her part, found herself caught between pride in Jake's achievements and worry about the wider implications. During a private meeting with Caxilor, she voiced her concerns. "I'm amazed by what Jake is accomplishing," she said, "but I can't help but wonder if we're moving too fast." Some of the other delegates seemed unsettled. Caxilor's inner light pulsed in what Samantha had come to recognize as a sign of deep thought. "Your concerns are not unfounded, Dr. Chen. The speed at which your Jake is progressing is unprecedented. It has sparked much debate among the elder races." Debate? What kind of debate? There are those who see humanity's quick adaptation as a sign of great potential, a reason to accelerate your integration into the galactic community. Others. Caxilor paused, choosing his words carefully. Others see it as a potential threat. They fear that if humans can so quickly master crystal kinetics, what might happen if you gain access to more advanced knowledge or technologies? Samantha felt a chill run down her spine. Are we at risk of being excluded from the conclave? No, no, Caxilor assured her quickly. That is not our way. But there may be restrictions proposed, limitations on what knowledge is shared with Earth, at least for the time being. As they continued their discussion, neither Samantha nor Caxilor noticed the small, shadowy figure listening from a hidden alcove. The being's multifaceted eyes glinted with interest as it absorbed every word. This development with the humans could prove very useful indeed to those who sought to disrupt the careful balance of power in the galaxy. Meanwhile, in the Luminarian training grounds, Jake had just completed another grueling session. As he sat catching his breath, his crystalline instructor approached. "You have done well today, Jake of Earth," the Luminarian chimed. "Your progress is remarkable. But remember, with great power comes great responsibility. The energies you are learning to manipulate can heal or harm, create or destroy. How humanity chooses to use this knowledge will shape your place in the galactic community." Jake nodded solemnly, understanding the weight of his instructor's words. As he looked out at the star-filled sky visible through the station's transparent dome, he couldn't help but feel that he was standing at the threshold of something monumental. Humanity had taken its first steps into a larger universe, and now they were learning to run. What none of them knew was that far away, in the dark spaces between the stars, ancient eyes had turned their gaze towards Earth. The quick mastery of alien martial arts by a human was sending ripples through the cosmic pond, attracting the attention of beings both benevolent and malevolent. As the first part of this grand adventure drew to a close, The stage was being set for conflicts and challenges that would test not just Jake's newfound abilities, but the very spirit of humanity itself. The prodigy and the ancient master. 3 months into the Galactic Cultural Exchange Program, Jake Rodriguez had become something of a celebrity aboard the Psylocke station. His progress in crystal kinetics had surpassed all expectations, and beings from across the galaxy would gather to watch his training sessions. Some came out of curiosity, others out of concern, but all were captivated by the sight of a human manipulating cosmic energies with increasing skill and precision. On this particular day, Jake stood in the center of the training arena, his eyes closed in concentration. Around him, the air shimmered with barely contained energy. His luminarian instructor, Xerax, circled him slowly, her crystalline form refracting the light in mesmerizing patterns. "Focus, Jake of Earth," Xerax chimed. "Feel the currents of the universe flowing through you. You are not separate from these energies. You are a conduit, a vessel through which they move." Jake's brow furrowed in concentration. Slowly, almost imperceptibly at first, he began to rise from the ground. A collective gasp went through the observing crowd. Levitation was an advanced technique that most students took years to master, yet here was this human, barely 3 months into his training, defying gravity. As Jake hovered a few feet off the ground, a sudden commotion at the entrance to the arena broke his concentration. He stumbled back to the floor, the energies around him dissipating in a flash of multicolored light. All eyes turned to the newcomer, and a hush fell over the crowd. Even Xerax seemed taken aback. Gliding into the arena was a being unlike any Jake had seen before. It appeared to be made of pure energy, its form constantly shifting and flowing like a living aurora. Where its face should have been, there was only a swirling vortex of light. Caxlor, who had been observing the training session, quickly moved to Jake's side. "That," he said in a hushed tone, "is Xerax, the luminary, one of the eldest and most respected masters of crystal kinetics in the galaxy. It is said he has lived for millennia and has seen the rise and fall of entire civilizations." Jake felt a mix of awe and trepidation as Xerax approached. The energy being's presence was overwhelming, filling the arena with an almost tangible sense of power and ancient wisdom. When Xerax spoke, his voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once, resonating in the very atoms of the air around them. "So this is the human who has caused such a stir in our cosmic community." Jake bowed deeply, remembering the protocols he had been taught. "It's an honor to meet you, Master Xerax. I hope my training hasn't caused any trouble." A sound like distant chimes filled the air. Xerax was laughing. "Trouble? Young one, you have no idea of the ripples you've created in the cosmic pond. But trouble? That remains to be seen." Xerax turned to Xerax. "You have done well with this student, Xerax. But I fear you may be out of your depth. The human's potential. It is unlike anything I have seen in eons." Xerax bowed, her crystalline form shimmering with what Jake had come to recognize as a mix of pride and uncertainty. "What would you have us do, Master?" Xerax's form pulsed with energy as he considered the question. After a moment that seemed to stretch into eternity, he spoke again. "I will take over the human's training personally." The announcement sent shockwaves through the arena. Caxlor's inner light pulsed rapidly, a sign of his agitation. "Master Xerax," he said carefully, "while we are honored by your interest, this is highly irregular. The human delegation will be informed, of course." Xerax interrupted. "But this is not a matter for diplomats to decide. The energies this human has tapped into are ancient and powerful. Without proper guidance, he could become a danger to himself and others." Jake, who had been listening to this exchange with growing confusion and a touch of fear, finally found his voice. "Don't I get a say in this?" All eyes turned to him, and Jake felt the weight of countless alien gazes. He swallowed hard but stood his ground. "I'm grateful for the offer, Master Xerax, truly. But I came here as part of a cultural exchange program. I'm not just here for myself. I'm here to learn on behalf of all humanity. If I go off for special training, what does that mean for the program? For Earth's place in the galactic community. Zorax's form shimmered, and Jake got the distinct impression that the ancient being was smiling. Wise words, young one. Your concern for your species does you credit. But consider this. By mastering these arts, by truly understanding the cosmic energies that bind the universe together, you could become a bridge between humanity and the elder races. Your knowledge could help guide your species as they take their first steps into the wider galaxy. As Jake pondered these words, Dr. Samantha Chen burst into the arena, flanked by several other human delegates and alien diplomats. Her face was a mask of concern and barely contained anger. "What's going on here?" she demanded. "We receive reports of some kind of disturbance, and now I find that one of our delegates is being—" "What?" "Poached." Caxlor moved quickly to intercept her, his forearms gesturing in what Jake had learned was a calming pattern. "Dr. Chen, please. This is Master Zorax, one of the most respected beings in the galaxy. He has taken an interest in Jake's training." Samantha's eyes narrowed as she took in the scene. "With all due respect, Master Zorax, we came here for a cultural exchange program, not to have one of our people whisked away for some kind of special training." Zorax's form pulsed, sending waves of soothing energy through the arena. "Your concern is understandable, Dr. Chen, but surely you can see the opportunity this presents. Your Jake has shown an aptitude for cosmic manipulation that is unprecedented in your species. Under my tutelage, he could advance further in a few years than your entire civilization might in centuries." As the diplomats argued back and forth, Jake found himself torn. On one hand, the opportunity to learn from a being as ancient and powerful as Zorax was tempting beyond belief. On the other, he understood Samantha's concerns. He had come here as a representative of Earth, and he felt a responsibility to his people. In the end, a compromise was reached. Jake would indeed train under Zorax, but not in isolation. Other human delegates would be allowed to observe and learn what they could, and Jake would regularly report back to the human contingent on his progress. As the crowd dispersed and preparations were made for Jake's new training regimen, Samantha pulled him aside. "Are you sure about this, Jake?" she asked, her voice low and concerned. "We don't know anything about this Zorax, or what his true motives might be." Jake nodded, his face set with determination. "I'm sure, Dr. Chen. I can't explain it, but I feel like this is something I have to do. Not just for myself, but for all of us back on Earth. If I can learn to harness these energies, to truly understand them, think of what it could mean for our people." Samantha sighed, but there was a glimmer of pride in her eyes. "Just be careful, okay? And remember, you're not alone out here. We're all counting on you, but we're also here to support you." As Jake prepared for his first session with Zorax, he couldn't shake the feeling that he was standing on the precipice of something monumental. The universe had opened up before him, vast and full of wonders, but also fraught with unknown dangers. Little did Jake know that far away, in a hidden corner of the galaxy, news of his apprenticeship to Zorax had reached some very interested parties. In a dimly lit chamber, a group of shadowy figures huddled around a holographic display showing Jake's image. "So," hissed one of the figures, its voice like grinding stone, "the humans have found a prodigy. This could complicate our plans." Another figure, tall and spindly with too many limbs, waved a dismissive appendage, "Or it could be the key to their undoing. After all, the higher they rise, the harder they fall," finished a third, its eyes glowing with malevolent anticipation. "Perhaps it's time we introduced ourselves to this promising young species. They should learn that the galaxy is not always a friendly place." As the shadowy council plotted, Jake began his training with Zorax, unaware that his actions were setting in motion events that would soon test not only his newfound abilities, but the very resolve of humanity itself. The true challenges, it seemed, were only just beginning. Galactic tournament and rising tensions. 6 months had passed since Jake Rodriguez began his intensive training under the tutelage of Zorax the Luminary. The Tsilok station buzzed with anticipation as delegates from across the galaxy gathered for an unprecedented event, the first galactic martial arts tournament in which humans would participate. Jake stood at the center of the human delegation's quarters, his body seeming to shimmer with barely contained energy. Dr. Samantha Chen watched him with a mixture of pride and concern. "Are you sure you're ready for this, Jake?" she asked, her voice low. "The competition out there, they've had centuries, millennia even, to perfect their techniques." Jake turned to her, his eyes glowing with an inner light that hadn't been there 6 months ago. "I'm ready, Dr. Chen. Zorax has taught me things I never imagined possible. It's time to show the galaxy what humanity can do." As they made their way to the grand arena, the corridors of the station were alive with a cacophony of alien languages and the excited buzz of anticipation. Species from every corner of the known universe had gathered to witness this historic event. The arena itself was a marvel of alien engineering, a vast dome of transparent material that seemed to shift and flow like liquid crystal, enclosed a space large enough to house several football fields. At its center was the main fighting platform, a circular area that hovered above the ground, surrounded by shimmering force fields. As the human delegation took their seats in the designated area, Caxlor approached them, his 4 arms moving in complex patterns of greeting. "Dr. Chen, Jake," he said, his inner light pulsing with what they had come to recognize as excitement. "I must warn you, the competition today will be fierce. Many of the galaxy's most renowned warriors have gathered to test their skills." Jake nodded, his face set with determination. "I'm ready for whatever comes my way." As the tournament began, it quickly became clear that this was unlike any martial arts competition Earth had ever seen. Beings of all shapes and sizes took to the platform, demonstrating abilities that defied human understanding of physics and biology. A gelatinous creature from the methane swamps of Horax Prime engaged in a fluid dance with a silicon-based life form, their bodies merging and separating in a deadly ballet. A group of telepathic fungi from the Spore Nebula battled with pure thought, their conflict invisible to the eye, but felt by every sentient being in the arena. Through it all, Jake watched and learned, his mind racing as he processed the myriad forms of combat on display. Finally, it was Jake's turn. As he stepped onto the platform, a hush fell over the arena. Many of the alien spectators had never seen a human in person before, let alone one trained in the cosmic arts. His first opponent was a Volcran war master, a being of living stone with a reputation for unbreakable defense. As the signal to begin was given, the Volcran immediately encased itself in a shell of crystalline armor, its surface gleaming under the arena lights. Jake took a deep breath, centering himself as Zorax had taught him. He felt the cosmic energies flowing around him, through him. With a sudden burst of speed that left gasps echoing through the arena, Jake launched himself at his opponent. What followed was a display of martial prowess that left even the most seasoned alien warriors in awe. Jake's movements were a blur, his body seeming to phase in and out of reality as he struck at his opponent. Each blow was infused with cosmic energy, causing cracks to appear in the Volcran's supposedly impenetrable armor. In the stands, Dr. Chen leaned forward, her knuckles white, as she gripped the edge of her seat. "My God," she whispered, "what has he become?" Beside her, Caxlor's inner light pulsed rapidly. "He has become what we both hoped and feared," the Zinthar said softly, "a bridge between your world and ours. But at what cost?" As the match progressed, it became clear that Jake was not just holding his own, but dominating. With a final, reality-bending strike, he shattered the Volcran's armor, sending his opponent crashing to the platform in defeat. The arena erupted in a cacophony of alien sounds, cheers, gasps, and more than a few concerned murmurs. As Jake stood victorious, his body still shimmering with residual energy, he caught sight of Zorax watching from a private booth. The ancient master's form pulsed with what Jake hoped was approval. But not everyone was celebrating. In the VIP section reserved for galactic dignitaries, a group of elder race representatives huddled in urgent conversation. "This is unprecedented," hissed a Korlax ambassador, its tentacles writhing in agitation. A species barely out of its cradle, already wielding cosmic energies with such proficiency. "It's dangerous." A Mentiad philosopher, its brain visible through a transparent dome, pulsed with agreement. "We must reconsider humanity's place in the galactic community. Perhaps we were too hasty in inviting them to join us." As the tournament progressed, Jake continued to astound and alarm in equal measure. He moved through the brackets with a grace and power that seemed impossible for a being of his young species. With each victory, the excitement of the human delegation grew, as did the concern among many of the elder races. In her seat, Dr. Chen found herself torn between pride in Jake's achievements and a growing sense of unease. The looks they were receiving from some of the alien delegates were no longer just curious, but wary, even hostile. During a break between matches, she pulled Jake aside. "You're doing incredibly well," she said, keeping her voice low. "But I'm worried about the reactions we're getting. Maybe it would be best if you held back a little." Jake looked at her, his eyes still glowing with that unnatural light. "Hold back? Dr. Chen, this is our chance to show the galaxy that humanity belongs here, that we can stand toe-to-toe with species that have been traversing the stars for millennia. I can't hold back now." Before she could argue further, a commotion near the arena entrance caught their attention. A new group of aliens was arriving, their appearance causing a stir among the other spectators. They were tall, sleek beings with black, oil-slick skin and eyes that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Caxlor appeared at their side, his inner light pulsing with what they had learned to recognize as concern. "Voidborn," he said, his mental voice tight with tension. "We didn't expect them to attend. They rarely involve themselves in galactic affairs." "Are they dangerous?" Dr. Chen asked, watching as the newcomers took their seats, their movements fluid and unnaturally graceful. Caxlor's four arms moved in a complex gesture that Jake had come to associate with uncertainty, not openly hostile, but unpredictable. They come from the very edge of known space, and their motives are often unclear. As Jake prepared for his next match, he couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. The excitement of the tournament was now tinged with an undercurrent of tension that seemed to vibrate through the very air of the arena. His next opponent was a chronomancer from the temporal vortex, a being that could manipulate the flow of time itself. As they faced each other on the platform, Jake felt a chill run down his spine. This, he realized, would be his greatest test yet. The match began, and immediately Jake found himself in a world of shifting realities. His opponent phased in and out of time, appearing in multiple places at once, landing blows that seemed to come from the past and future simultaneously. Drawing on everything Zorax had taught him, Jake reached out with his senses, feeling the ebb and flow of cosmic energies around him. Time, he realized, was just another form of energy, another aspect of the universe that could be perceived and, potentially, manipulated. With a tremendous effort of will, Jake began to match his opponent's temporal shifts. The two warriors danced across the platform, their movements blurring as they slipped between moments of time. In the stands, the audience watched in astonishment, even for beings accustomed to the wonders of the universe. This display was extraordinary. Dr. Chen found herself holding her breath, her scientific mind struggling to comprehend what she was seeing. The Voidborn delegates leaned forward in their seats, their light-absorbing eyes fixed intently on the battle. One of them turned to its companion and whispered in a language that sounded like the void between stars given voice. As the match reached its climax, Jake and his opponent became little more than blurs of energy, their forms merging and separating as they grappled across time itself. With a final, reality-warping strike, Jake managed to disrupt his opponent's temporal field, bringing them both crashing back into the present moment. The chronomancer lay defeated on the platform, its temporal energies dissipating in swirls of chronometric particles. Jake stood over his fallen opponent, his chest heaving, his entire body glowing with residual energy. For a moment, the arena was silent. Then, like a dam bursting, noise erupted from every corner. Cheers, shouts of disbelief, and more than a few cries of alarm filled the air. As Jake made his way back to the human delegation's area, he was met by a storm of conflicting reactions. Dr. Chen embraced him, her face a mix of pride and worry. Caxlor hovered nearby, his inner light pulsing rapidly as he fielded questions and concerns from other delegates. But it was the approach of one of the Voidborn that silenced the commotion around them. The alien glided forward, its movements so smooth it seemed to float above the ground. When it spoke, its voice was like the whisper of distant galaxies. Fascinating, it said, its light-absorbing eyes fixed on Jake. Your species is full of surprises, human. We will be watching your progress with great interest. As the Voidborn turned and glided away, Jake felt a shiver run down his spine. He had come to the tournament to prove humanity's worth, to show that they belonged among the stars. But as he looked around at the mix of awe, fear, and calculation on the faces of the alien delegates, he couldn't help but wonder. Had he just made humanity's position in the galaxy more secure or infinitely more precarious? The final rounds of the tournament loomed, and with them, the promise of even greater challenges. But Jake was beginning to realize that the true test might not be on the fighting platform, but in the complex web of galactic politics and power struggles that he had unwittingly become entangled in. As he prepared for his next match, the weight of not just his own fate, but potentially that of all humanity, rested squarely on his shoulders. The galaxy watched, waited, and wondered what this young species would do next. Threat from the void. The aftermath of the Galactic Martial Arts Tournament sent shockwaves through the cosmic community. Jake Rodriguez, the human prodigy, had not only held his own against beings with millennia of experience, but had emerged as the champion. His mastery of crystal kinetics, combined with what many were calling a uniquely human adaptability, had turned him into a figure of both admiration and concern. In the weeks following the tournament, the Tylok station became a hotbed of political maneuvering. Species from across the galaxy sent representatives to observe the humans more closely, particularly Jake. The human delegation found themselves at the center of a cosmic storm, fielding requests for alliances, technology exchanges, and in some cases, thinly veiled threats. Dr. Samantha Chen sat in a conference room, surrounded by holograms of various alien diplomats. The debate had been raging for hours, and she could feel a headache building behind her eyes. The humans have shown themselves to be far more adaptable than we anticipated, a Korlax ambassador was saying, its tentacles waving in agitation. We must reconsider their status in the galactic community. A Mentiad philosopher's brain pulsed in agreement. Perhaps restrictions on the knowledge shared with them would be prudent. For their own safety, of course. Samantha leaned forward, her voice firm. With all due respect, ambassadors, humanity came here in good faith. We've adhered to every regulation, every protocol. Jake's success in the tournament was not a threat, but a demonstration of our species' potential to contribute to this community. As the debate continued, Jake found himself in a private training session with Zorax. The ancient master's form shimmered with an intensity Jake had never seen before. You have progressed far beyond my expectations, young one. Zorax's voice resonated through the chamber. But with great power comes great responsibility. The ripples of your actions are spreading far and wide across the cosmic sea. Jake nodded, his face serious. I understand, Master. I never meant to cause diplomatic issues. I just wanted to prove that humanity belongs here, among the stars. Zorax's form pulsed, a gesture Jake had come to recognize as a sign of deep thought. Your intentions were pure, but the universe rarely concerns itself with intentions. It deals in consequences, and the consequences of your actions are still unfolding. Before Jake could respond, an alarm blared through the station. Red lights flashed, and a voice echoed through the corridors in multiple languages. Alert! Unidentified vessels approaching. All personnel to emergency stations. Jake and Zorax rushed to the station's command center. They arrived to find chaos. Holographic displays showed a swarm of ships emerging from what appeared to be a tear in the very fabric of space. Caxlor was there, his 4 arms moving frantically over control panels. "It's the Void Horde," he said, his mental voice tight with fear. "We thought they were just a legend, a Boogeyman story told to scare younglings. But they're real, and they're here." Dr. Chen burst into the room, her face pale. "What's happening? Who are the Void Horde?" A Voidborn delegate glided forward, its light-absorbing eyes fixed on the approaching fleet. "They are the darkness between the stars given form and purpose," it said, its voice a whisper that somehow carried over the din. "A species so ancient and alien that even we know little about them. They emerge from the deepest voids of space to consume and destroy." As they watched, the Void Horde ships engaged the station's defensive fleet. The battle was brief and brutal. Ships on both sides exploded in silent bursts of light and debris. "We need to evacuate," Caxlor said, his inner light pulsing rapidly. "The station's defenses won't hold for long." But Jake stood transfixed by the battle unfolding before them. He could feel something, an energy unlike anything he'd encountered before. It radiated from the Void Horde ships, a hunger so vast and ancient it made his mind reel. "We can't run," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "If we run, they'll just follow. This station is a hub for hundreds of species. If it falls, the Void Horde will have a foothold in the heart of populated space." Zorax moved to Jake's side, his energy form pulsing with approval. "The human speaks wisdom beyond his years. We must make a stand here." Dr. Chen looked at Jake, her eyes wide with a mixture of pride and fear. "What do you propose we do? Our weapons are barely scratching their ships." Jake closed his eyes, reaching out with his senses as Zorax had taught him. He could feel the cosmic energies flowing through the station, through the beings around him, through the very fabric of space itself. And he could feel the void, the hungry darkness emanating from the invading fleet. His eyes snapped open, glowing with inner light. "We fight fire with fire," he said, "or in this case, we fight void with cosmic energy." What followed was a flurry of activity. Jake, with Zorax's guidance, began instructing the station's defenders on how to channel cosmic energy into their weapons and shields. It was a crash course in crystal kinetics on a scale never before attempted. Dr. Chen worked with Caxlor and other alien scientists to modify the station's main reactor, turning it into a massive cosmic energy amplifier. The Voidborn, usually aloof and mysterious, offered their unique insights into the nature of the void, helping to devise strategies against the invaders. As the Void Horde breached the station's outer defenses, Jake found himself at the forefront of the battle. He stood on an observation deck, his body glowing with barely contained energy. Around him, beings of various species mimicked his stance, their bodies beginning to shimmer as they tapped into the cosmic energies Jake had taught them to harness. The first wave of Void Horde troops teleported into the station, shadowy, writhing forms that seemed to devour light itself. They moved with terrifying speed and purpose, their touch causing organic matter to wither and technology to short-circuit. Jake took a deep breath, centering himself. Then, with a shout that seemed to resonate on a cosmic level, he unleashed a wave of pure energy. The defenders followed suit, and the corridor was filled with a dazzling display of power. The battle that ensued was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Humans fought alongside beings they had only recently met, their movements guided by Jake's hastily taught techniques. The Void Horde pressed forward relentlessly, but for every defender that fell, 2 more seemed to step up, inspired by Jake's leadership and the collective will to survive. In the command center, Dr. Chen and Caxlor worked frantically to coordinate the defense. Holographic displays showed battles raging across multiple decks of the station. The main reactor is at 95% capacity. A luminarium engineer reported, its crystalline form vibrating with tension. If we push it any further, we risk a cascade failure. Dr. Chen's fingers flew over the controls. We don't have a choice. Jake and the others need every ounce of power we can give them. As the battle reached its peak, Jake found himself face to face with what appeared to be a Void Horde commander. The being was a swirling mass of darkness, with pinpricks of dying stars for eyes. It radiated an aura of such profound emptiness that Jake felt his very soul recoil. The two circled each other, cosmic energy clashing against void stuff in a display that warped the very reality around them. Jake drew upon everything he had learned, pushing his human body and mind to their absolute limits and beyond. In the final, cataclysmic moment of their duel, Jake reached out not just with his newfound cosmic powers, but with something uniquely human, an indomitable will to survive, to protect, to overcome. He poured every ounce of his being into a final, reality-warping strike. The resulting explosion of energy rippled through the station and out into space. For a moment, it seemed as if time itself had paused, the battle frozen in a tableau of light and shadow. Then, slowly at first, but with gathering speed, the Void Horde began to retreat. Their ships, those that remained, turned and flowed back through the spatial tear from which they had emerged. As the realization of victory spread through the station, cheers and cries of relief echoed through the corridors. Beings of all species embraced, their differences forgotten in the shared joy of survival. Jake stood on the observation deck, his body trembling with exhaustion, staring out at the star-filled expanse where the Void Horde had been. He felt a presence beside him, and turned to see Zorax, the ancient master's form pulsing with what Jake now recognized as profound respect. "You have done the impossible, young one," Zorax said, his voice filled with awe. "You have united the galaxy in ways we never thought possible, and in doing so, you may have saved us all." As the immediate danger passed and the process of rebuilding began, Jake couldn't help but wonder what this victory would mean for humanity's place in the galactic community. They had come seeking knowledge and friendship among the stars. Instead, they had found themselves at the center of a cosmic storm, wielding powers beyond their wildest dreams and facing threats beyond their darkest nightmares. The galaxy had changed, and humanity had been the catalyst. As Jake looked out at the stars, he realized that their journey was far from over. In fact, it seemed that the true adventure was only just beginning. The final battle and new alliances. In the weeks following the Void Horde attack, the Psylocke station buzzed with a new kind of energy. The debris of battle had been cleared, damaged sections were under repair, but the real transformation was happening in the hearts and minds of the station's inhabitants. Jake Rodriguez, once viewed with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion, had become a symbol of hope and unity. The sight of a human leading a multi-species defense against an ancient cosmic threat had shattered preconceptions across the galactic community. In a grand chamber that had been hastily converted into an emergency meeting hall, representatives from hundreds of species gathered. The Galactic Council, a governing body that had existed for millennia, was in session to discuss the recent events and their implications. Dr. Samantha Chen sat next to Jake, both of them still bearing the marks of battle. Across from them, Zorax's energy form pulsed gently, while Caxlor's four arms moved in complex patterns as he translated for some of the more exotic species present. The Korlax ambassador, its tentacles now adorned with bandages, spoke first. "We cannot ignore what has transpired. The human, Jake Rodriguez, not only mastered cosmic martial arts at an unprecedented rate, but also successfully led a defense against a threat we thought was mere legend." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. The Mentiad philosopher's brain pulsed as it added, "Perhaps we were too hasty in our initial judgments. The humans have demonstrated not just adaptability, but a unique ability to unite disparate species toward a common goal. Jake leaned towards Dr. Chen, whispering, "Is this really happening? Are they actually praising us now?" Samantha gave a small smile, her eyes never leaving the assembled aliens. "Don't celebrate yet. Politics, especially on a galactic scale, is a complex game." As if to prove her point, a void-born delegate glided forward, its light-absorbing eyes sweeping the chamber. While the humans' actions were impressive, we must not lose sight of the larger issue. The Void Horde has revealed itself. This attack may have been repelled, but it was likely only a scouting force. We must prepare for the possibility of a full-scale invasion. The chamber erupted in a cacophony of alien voices, each species trying to argue its point. Some called for immediate military buildup, others for attempts at diplomatic contact with the Void Horde. A few even suggested abandoning the threatened sectors of space entirely. Amidst the chaos, Zorax's form brightened, drawing all eyes. When he spoke, his voice resonated with the weight of eons. "In all my long existence, I have never seen a force quite like what we witnessed during the battle. It was not just the human's mastery of cosmic energies, but the way he inspired and united beings from across the galaxy. Perhaps in this unlikely species, we have found the key to our survival." A hush fell over the chamber as the implications of Zorax's words sank in. Jake felt the weight of countless alien gazes upon him, and he resisted the urge to shrink back in his seat. Dr. Chen, sensing the moment, stood up. "Members of the Galactic Council, honored representatives, we came to you seeking knowledge and friendship. We never imagined we would find ourselves at the center of a cosmic conflict. But now that we're here, let me say this: humanity stands ready to do its part in defending our shared galaxy." Her words seemed to break the tension. Suddenly, representatives were calling out, offering resources, knowledge, and support. Species that had been bitter rivals for millennia found themselves agreeing on the need for a united front against the Void Horde threat. As the session progressed, a plan began to take shape. Earth would become a focal point for a new initiative, a multi-species training program combining the best martial and cosmic arts from across the galaxy. Jake, along with other human volunteers, would work alongside alien instructors to create a new generation of cosmic defenders. In return, humanity would receive unprecedented access to advanced alien technologies and knowledge, accelerating Earth's development by centuries, if not millennia. As the council session concluded, Jake found himself surrounded by alien well-wishers and potential new allies. It was overwhelming, but he couldn't help but feel a surge of pride and excitement. Zorax approached, his energy form shimmering with what Jake had come to recognize as amusement. "Well, young one, it seems you've managed to turn the galaxy on its head. Are you prepared for what comes next?" Jake took a deep breath, looking around at the diverse beings surrounding him. "Honestly, Master Zorax, I'm not sure anyone can be fully prepared for this, but I'm ready to try." In the days that followed, preparations began in earnest. The first wave of alien instructors and diplomats prepared to journey to Earth, while human scientists and leaders were briefed on the monumental changes coming their way. Jake found himself at the center of it all, demonstrating techniques, bridging cultural gaps, and sometimes just marveling at the incredible turn his life had taken. One evening, as he stood on an observation deck looking out at the star-filled void, Dr. Chen joined him. "Penny for your thoughts?" she asked, a hint of their old, easy report returning. Jake chuckled. "I'm not sure they're worth that much, Dr. Chen. I was just thinking, when we left Earth, we were so focused on proving ourselves, on showing that we belonged out here among the stars. I never imagined it would lead to all this." Samantha nodded, her eyes reflecting the starlight. "It's ironic, isn't it? In trying to prove our worth, we've ended up with a responsibility greater than we ever could have anticipated." "Do you think we're ready for it?" Jake asked, voicing the doubt that had been nagging at him. "I mean, we're talking about turning Earth into some kind of cosmic martial arts academy, preparing to face a threat that's straight out of our worst nightmares. Are we in over our heads? Dr. Chen was quiet for a moment, considering. Maybe, she finally said. But then again, being in over our heads is something of a human specialty, isn't it? We've faced overwhelming odds before, Jake. The difference now is that we're not facing them alone. As if to emphasize her point, Caxlor appeared, flanked by a luminarium and a voidborn. Apologies for the interruption, the Zinthar said, his mental voice tinged with excitement. But we've had a breakthrough in combining crystal kinetics with voidborn shadow manipulation techniques. We thought you'd want to see. Jake grinned, the weight lifting from his shoulders. Lead the way, he said. As they walked through the station's corridors, Jake marveled at the sight of humans and aliens working side by side, sharing knowledge, solving problems, and preparing for the challenges ahead. The threat of the Void Horde loomed on the horizon, a darkness waiting to test their newfound unity. But as Jake watched a young human scientist excitedly explaining an idea to a group of alien engineers, he felt a surge of hope. Humanity had come to the stars seeking its place in the cosmic community. They had found not just a place, but a purpose. The road ahead would be difficult, filled with challenges they could scarcely imagine. But they would face those challenges together, human and alien alike, bound by the unexpected consequences of a simple cultural exchange program. As Jake stepped into the laboratory to witness the latest breakthrough, he couldn't help but smile. The greatest adventure in human history was just beginning, and he was ready to face whatever the universe had in store. The stars awaited, and humanity, armed with newfound knowledge, allies, and a spirit of unity, was ready to meet them head-on.